There we go. I see it now. So I'm gonna share my screen and put the PowerPoint on. All right. So welcome everyone to Careers in STEM panel tonight. So thank you for joining us. I'm really excited. We have some fantastic panelists here with us that are joining us tonight. And my name is Corey White. I'm an employer relations partner with our Career Services department. And I'm joined by my co-host, and co-facilitator Peter Bartel, as well as the Associate Dean of our STEM programs, Tyra Brown, who's going to moderate the questions to our panelists tonight. But wanted to give us all a couple of quick housekeeping items. Your experience here at Southern New Hampshire University is important to us. It is our policy and practice to create an inclusive and accessible learning environment. And if there are aspects of this presentation's design or delivery that present barriers to accessibility, please notify the following below here, the Online Accessibility Center by emailing oac@snhu.edu or by phone at 866-305-9430. And you can also connect with us for any career-related questions, career-related advice at cocecareer@snhu.edu. And with that, before we open it up to the panel, the way that tonight's panel is going to work is we're going to have each of the panelists introduce themselves to the audience. And then I will hand it over to Tyra Brown for the moderated portion of this panel. After that, we'll open it up the last half of tonight's event for Q&A, and you all will get your chance to ask some questions to our panelists. So without further ado, first up, Ennis, if you could come off of mute and just give us a little bit of an introduction to you and introduce yourself.
Thanks, Corey. Hello, everyone, and thank you so much for having me on this panel. My name is Narayan Shankar, go by NS, work for Infosys Limited. We are a large IT services and consulting organization, been in the IT industry for about 30 years now. Wear many hats, primarily on the what we call as the delivery management side. My daily trade, which I do on a daily basis, is program management, but I also focus on multiple centers of excellence within Infosys, including I also work with our campus recruitment teams. Thank you so much for having me, Corey. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Ennis. And Jacob, if you could come off mute and introduce yourself.
Hi, everybody. My name is Jacob Ferris. I'm a Deputy Director with Scientific Research Corporation. We are an engineering services firm based out of Atlanta, Georgia. Primarily, we work with DoD, Department of State, government agencies, as well as some state-level agencies to provide engineering and software development solutions.
Awesome. Thank you, Jacob. And Jenna, if you could come off of mute and introduce yourself.
Hi, everyone. It's great to be here. So my name is Jenna Frankie, and I'm a medicinal chemist at Gilead Sciences, which is based in Foster City, California, near San Francisco. But we also have some other sites, such as in Seattle. And so I'm from Chicago originally, and I studied chemistry in undergrad and ended up doing a PhD in chemical biology. And my job is I actually design and synthesize drug molecules. So I'm in the lab about 90% of the time, just like stirring molecules together and setting up organic reactions. So if you've seen the TV show Breaking Bad, that's kind of what I do, except legal drugs. So I'm happy to talk more about it for anyone who's interested in like research or bench science.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Jenna. And that concludes the introductions of the panelists tonight. So with that, I'm going to hand it over to Tyra to start with the moderated portion.
Hi,
Take it away,
everyone,
Tyra.
and welcome. Excited to be here, excited to hear more from our panelists. Before we get started, I just wanted to give kind of a quick shout out to all the folks who are in the Southeast who may have been impacted by Hurricane Ian last week. Whether you're joining us live or watching the recording, please know that we're thinking about you and making sure that everybody is safe and healthy. So with that, I'm going to move on, and the panelists, if you'd like to just jump in, my first question to you all is if you could kind of share a little bit more about your educational background and how you landed where you are right now. What are some of maybe the key aspects or the pointers that really kind of drove you navigating through your career path? Jenna, do you want to start us off?
Sure. That's definitely a big question. I think going into college, I was actually thinking of maybe being more of like a psychology major or maybe pre-med. Chemistry wasn't really on my radar yet. I was lucky to have like a really good high school chemistry teacher. And my freshman year of college, I was taking both like intro to psychology as well as general chemistry. And I found that I didn't enjoy the psychology course as much as I thought. And even though I didn't love Gen Chem, I was like, well, I like Gen Chem more than the pre-med, so maybe I should take more chemistry. And then I ended up taking organic chemistry and just like totally fell in love with it. It's way less math than general chemistry. It's kind of more conceptual and intuitive and about building molecules. And then I kind of just followed that interest and, did some research in a lab, and that led to grad school. And I think one thing that really helped me along the way is I did a lot of what's called like informational interviews. So I was lucky to have an uncle who worked in the pharmaceutical industry, which is definitely a privilege in itself, but he kind of would like introduce me to some of his buddies in other different chemistry fields. And I also would reach out to people on LinkedIn and at conferences that I met just to network and learn more about what they do. And yeah, so that's kind of the short version, but kind of just followed my initial interests in the beginning of college and then just kind of asked people who already had those jobs what's like the next steps I should be looking at.
That's excellent. Thank you so much, Jenna. Ennis,
Yeah.
would you like to share?
Sure. Thank you. Yeah, so my journey was primarily something which I wanted in childhood was always to be an engineer. I used to love physics, not so much good in math, but I was always into physics. So always like to break things and used to always try to put things back. So wanted to be an engineer. So got into engineering school in India, and halfway through the course, I discovered that I did not want to be an electronics engineer. And so luckily for me, there were a couple of courses on microprocessors and things like that. So that got me into software development in a small way. In fact, most of the IT work I did not learn in college. It was all in the industry. So I managed to get a job in IT as a software developer. And a couple of years into that, I discovered I didn't like that. I wanted to get into more people-facing kind of roles. And my calling was when I actually was part of a team and where we had to walk the floors of a large manufacturing plant to come up with IT solutions to help that industry, that manufacturing facility. And that was my calling. So I knew enough of technology to know what it can do, but I love to make this meet solutions to help people. And that was my calling. And ever since then, I went on to lead small teams and then large teams and mid-sized teams. So today, I lead large programs with hundreds of people around the globe. And it's all about trying to get solutions to our clients. That was my journey. Thank you.
Thank you, Ennis. Yeah, it sounds like it's just as important to know what you love and what you don't love to really kind of guide your path. Jacob, would you like to share?
Sure. So, being former military, I have a bit of a unique educational background in the fact that I was in the Navy, so I was constantly deployed places around the world. So I had to have the flexibility of distance education or remote courses. So I used the education to gain additional experience in the things I was already working on in the military. So more to become more well-rounded in my area of expertise. I really enjoyed what I did, and I used education to kind of supplement it. And then through that education, you almost start to find areas that you like more and you don't like. There's aspects of your education and your job that you naturally gravitate towards. So I started out in hardware engineering. I started taking more classes in the software development arena. Finished a degree in software development. And then, similar to some of the other panelists, I started to really enjoy the people aspect and managing projects and overseeing a project and connecting all these bigger pieces instead of working on one small piece of something. I enjoy the solution a lot more. As for an aspect that's really helped me, networking opportunities, events like this, communities of interest. You never know when a networking opportunity is going to benefit you in the future, or when it sparks a conversation that gets the creative juices flowing and it solves a problem you may have been working on or staring at for a long time. So it's definitely, I would say networking is one of the key aspects that has gotten me this far.
Great. Thank you, Jacob. So I think we heard a little bit about each of you and what your kind of day-to-day looks like, but in your current role, what does kind of a day in the life look like, and what are some of kind of your key tasks or your larger initiatives or projects that you work on? And I'm going to pass it back around to Jacob while you're off mic.
Okay. So day to day, I'm a deputy director of a large IT portfolio. So it's fairly fast paced. Currently, I oversee the development of around a dozen systems and products for a segment of our customer base, primarily supporting the Navy and Marine Corps. And what that looks like, for instance, in one meeting, I could be working with the team as we're analyzing antennas and environmental conditions for wave propagation, all the way to the next meeting, we're talking about strategies to decompose the legacy Java application into microservices or containers, and how that would be beneficial to the customer or what advantages that would bring to the project. So it's a wide-ranging role, but very rewarding in that I get to see the solutions from a very high level.
Fascinating, Jacob. Thank you. Enes, would you like to tell us a little bit about your day-to-day?
Sure. Yeah. Thank you. Very similar to Jacob, actually. So I run a department in Infosys called as a program management unit. So we have about 140 program managers worldwide. Each of the program managers manage large programs. So every program can have anything from 100 to maybe even 1,000 people in a program worldwide. So these are very large, complex programs, all for our clients. And we need to get them, on schedule and budget, and they have to meet the objectives of the program. So a day in a life, what does it look like? I can probably organize it into two parts. One is what I call as a proactive set of activities. So a lot of reviews, working with program managers, the clients to understand so we have very detailed plans of what should happen on a weekly basis, monthly basis, 6-month basis. So the proactive part is to just make sure that are we on point to actually deliver what the commitments were. Then there is the reactive part, and these days the reactive part takes up a lot more time for us. And the reactive part is really, there is no dearth for problems. So anything and anything can break. On the client side, someone might change, new perspectives will come. They'll say, hey, you know what, I want to change this part. So there's always something to worry about, mitigate, take corrective action, bring people back together to back to the drawing board to get the job done. So that's kind of my two things on a daily basis. Pretty much 60% of the time when I wake up in the morning, I don't know what I'm going to get into. So I just love it and I just take it on. So.
That's excellent. Thank you. It's good to remain agile and be able to zoom in and out like that, from big picture into the details. How about you, Jenna?
So a day in the life of a medicinal chemist, we kind of go through these cycles of designing a drug molecule. So, a lot of times we'll need to change the molecule to make it more potent against the desired target, or so that more of it gets absorbed when you take the pill. So we form a hypothesis of, like, I think this change is going to fix this problem. And then, similar to like putting something together with Legos, we figure out how to build that molecule from commercially available chunks of molecules and how we want to stitch it together. So then we actually have to go into the lab and stir the molecules together to build that molecule and purify it and prove that we made it. So if you're somebody who really enjoys like working with their hands a lot, being up on your feet and active, it's definitely a job that's both very physically active as well as like mentally stimulating. And I also get to work with a lot of biologists, a lot of computational chemists. I saw a couple people with kind of like more computer science, IT backgrounds, mathematics. Like I work with a lot of people with mathematics training that help us plot, like how much of the drug gets absorbed over time. So I did want to emphasize as well, like, even if you're like, oh gosh, chemistry is like my least favorite subject, we do hire people from all sorts of backgrounds to work in the pharmaceutical industry because it's kind of a team sport. You need people from all sorts of backgrounds to solve the problems.
Great. Thank you so much, Jenna. It's great to hear that everyone in their role is solving really important problems every day. So I feel like you've got the right audience here with a bunch of STEM students and STEM lovers. So my next question, and a lot of you alluded to this in your introductions, but what are some things that you did along your career pathway that really made the difference? Jenna, you talked a little bit about networking and, kind of getting to be able to tap into different careers before you really were able to, take a step into that career itself. So I'm curious, what are some of the things that you would maybe recommend to students who are looking for these types of positions in their career pathway?
Yeah, I think another thing I did while I was an undergrad is just you have to be like not too afraid to put yourself out there, because a lot of times the opportunities aren't going to show up at your doorstep or in your inbox. A lot of the opportunity and the training that I got was by reaching out to professors and asking for it. So as an example, at the end of my freshman year, I emailed every single professor in the chemistry department at my university because I knew that I wanted research experience, but it's that whole thing of like, how do you get experience when you don't have experience? And even though I didn't get into my first choice lab the first time, when I applied into my first choice lab a year later, I got in because then I had had some research experience and also taken more classes that were relevant. So it really just kind of showed me that you just kind of have to be persistent and like ask people what sort of skills they're looking for. And the other thing I really recommend is look into internships if you can, because doing like an internship at a pharmaceutical company was really what kind of gave me the drive. And like I knew, okay, this is what I want to do. But it wasn't until I kind of had the hands-on experience trying it that I knew.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Jenna. How about you, Ennis?
Completely echo what Jenna said. I think networking is really very, very important. For me, I think when I was in college, if I go back, one of the anxiety moments I used to have was to really try to know what the real life was, right? So we used to study circuit theory and whatnot in college. And I frankly don't even know if there's a single course I studied in college which is relevant for my work today. But I think what college does is give you this problem solving, critical thinking along. So that's very important to understand what is that real life look like and try to, the only way to do it is through networking. I'm from the IT industry, and in the IT industry, everything changes every 18 months. So no matter what the technology, where the technology is today, I know it's going to change 24 months from now. So it's really important to network, do internship, and today there's so much of resources out there. YouTube is a fantastic thing I actually look at YouTubes to understand what it takes for a young person to come into to think what do they go through. I look at glass door and things like that just to understand experiences. So there's a lot of information out there. There's too much information. So try to focus on where you want to go. Talk to a few people who you can trust, and then form your thing. I think the best advice I was given, which I still remember, was an engineer from the Boeing company, and he was a complete. There were just three of him in the whole world. One was in Airbus, one was in Boeing, and one was in Brazil. And so he told me that remember always, and is that if you think you don't know something, just know that you're a book away. So you can always get into it and learn. And as long as you know what you want to do, and if you have the passion for it, just go after it, talk to people, and things will fall into place. That's the one thing which I would share, which worked for me.
Great. Thank you so much, Enes. What about you, Jacob?
Oh, thank you. I got it.
You did? Okay.
Yeah.
So for me, my experience is
thank
kind
you.
of a bridge from the innocent.
Perfect. You're welcome. All right.
Networking. Networking is key to keeping your opportunity. When I was starting my career, I had a good idea of where I wanted to head, but I didn't really have a good grasp on exactly how to get there. What were the steps? I saw basically here I am today. This is where I want to be, and there's this giant chasm in between. Um, I started networking, and you would be amazed at how willing people in the industry are to help you. Um, LinkedIn is one of the strongest tools available today to folks looking to break into an industry. You would be amazed at how many people, if you just reach out to somebody and say a certification, or I want to get into this portion of the industry, how did you get there? People will love to give you some feedback on what it will take. I know, surprisingly enough, I've had a couple of folks reach out to me and ask me how did I get this IT certification or that one, or were there any study aids that were helped me along the way, and I'm more than happy to provide that. So yes, you're going to get ghosted sometimes. That's just the nature of the beast. But more often than not, people are willing to help, and they'll give you good feedback on how they got to where they are today.
Just like all of you are today. So everyone is taking the right step in the right direction, whether you're watching the recording or joining us live today. This is part of the networking that you all should be doing, and you can feel really good about taking this kind of initial step. We've got lots of good questions coming up in the chat. I was told we'll have lots of time for questions, so keep popping those in the chat, or keep them in mind. We will have about 20 minutes towards the end. So you all come from a little bit slightly different industries. So I'm curious to ask, what are maybe like one or the two kind of key skills, whether you develop them in school or you develop them on the job, hard or soft skills, that have really helped you, or that you notice that the people around you have, that are successful in the industry that you work in? I'll go with you, Jacob, first.
Sure. So the one that really sticks out to me is a natural curiosity for learning. And it's hit it on the head. Around every 18 months in the technology industry, everything changes. So everything, when you're in class and you're learning a specific tool or a specific application, the important part isn't to focus on being a master of that tool. It's the process that you're going through to solve that problem, because the landscape is going to change over time. So that curiosity and thought process that you're going through to solve a problem or get to a solution, that's what's important. So keep looking at the world, looking and asking questions about what's around you and what's changing in your environment, and how you can apply what you know and the tools you used then and apply them in a new way.
I love that sentiment, natural curiosity. Thank you, Jacob. How about you, Ennis?
No, absolutely. I completely agree. So I think just to add a different perspective is, I think a good knowledge of whatever person learns is very important. So coming out of college, we don't expect someone as an expert in an area, right? But ultimately, people like to work with people. So what we look for is, will this person gel well in a team? Would I be willing to sit next to the person to discuss something? So those are very important soft skills which are there. Whatever is the course someone does, from an IT perspective, I recommend that do a couple of courses with a kind of clustered together, and then within that do a couple of projects as part of capstone, or within that to say that yes, you have done something. Try to do a certification, and that kind of helps the narrative that you're serious about what you're doing. That's really what we want to see, because we know, as Jacob said, everything is going to change in 24 months. But we want to see that application focus and interest to as a person. And so typically hard skills will get in a person into a good job. People who do extremely well in careers actually have much better soft skills. And that is something which, so people who can communicate well, articulate well, present well, work with teams. You don't need to be the smartest person in the room. Those are things which really help with your career. Thank you.
That's great advice, Ennis. Thank you. How about you, Jenna?
So my job as a medicinal chemist, it's a little bit different than I think NS and Jacob's roles, where you can kind of do more on the job learning. Being a medicinal chemist is a very specific skill set, because everybody's done at least 1 year of working in an organic synthesis lab before they come to Gilead and do it. So there is a little bit of kind of prerequisite lab training, that just because, we're a big company and we can be selective with our applicants, we like to choose chemists that have had research experience that's going to prepare them for the type of problems they're going to encounter at Gilead. So I think the most important things for my job specifically are having that sort of hands-on laboratory training, and also teamwork, because we're constantly communicating with our teammates and solving problems together. I think the two most important things for working in the pharmaceutical industry in general are teamwork is still number one, because you're always working with people in other departments. And I would say the other things that are really important are being really creative and thinking outside of the box, and also kind of persistence, because a lot of times in research, you solve a problem and then a couple months later you hit another big roadblock. So you have to be really determined and persistent, and not get too discouraged easily.
I love that advice. Thank you so much, Jenna. And thank you to all of our panelists. So I have one more moderated question, and this is kind of a bigger scale question to wrap us up before we go to Q&A. Jenna, what are maybe some of the trends in the industry that you see within kind of your segment of STEM, either kind of within the field itself for research, or trends that you see from kind of a career and job perspective?
That's a tough one. I would say, I would say the outlook definitely looks good in terms of biotech and pharmaceuticals. Like even during 2020, when a lot of people were getting laid off and losing jobs, we were hiring more people to fight the pandemic. So I think it's a pretty good industry to get into in terms of job security. And I think even though my particular department, you kind of need to have a chemistry background, a lot of other departments at Gilead, you can come from a much broader range of backgrounds. So a lot of the backgrounds I've seen in the chat are definitely applicable to some of the other departments. And I think, kind of like we mentioned before, even if you don't meet 100% of the job description, if there's some overlap, I think it's still worth messaging someone at that company and seeing if they can recommend you for that opening. And doing that, you're a lot more likely to get your resume looked at than just applying online and not talking to anybody. So that's like the biggest thing that I did is always like, even if I just went to school with somebody 8 years ago, if they're at the company I want to apply for, I'm going to message them and be like, hey, can you give the hiring manager a heads up that I just applied online? Here's my resume and research summary, for your convenience. I think that's just a good tip for anybody.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Jenna. I think that's really great advice, and apply anyway and make sure you make those connections. Thank you. Ennis, what would you like to share about what kind of industry trends, and can kind of be IT or project management specific?
Yeah, I can speak to from an IT services perspective. So I think the outlook is extremely positive. Especially the last 5 years, I would say that I wish I had started my career today, because that's how much potential and scope is there. I think so. The IT industry is very, very vast, right? And from if I look at our clients, we have clients right from um, manufacturing to financial services to companies who make food and sell in the grocery shop. So we have all kinds of clients. So in every single industry, one of the common theme which is going around is what we call as digital transformation, where there is definitely with AI and robotics, there is a clear trend where a lot of the menial jobs can actually be done by technology. So I would always I would say that if that's going to be the trend, let's put ourselves in the place to make those jobs which create those technologies. I think that's really what is important. The trends are so digital transformation in IT. There is digital data analytics. So there's a vast area of digital skills which are really needed. I will also offer to say that, but fundamentally, some of the basic concepts of within the IT world are not going to change. Software development practices is not going to change. The definition of quality is not going to change. So no matter what new shining wheel we are going to get in the future, some of these basic constructs, qualities, things will not change. So it's important for us to understand them, try to practice them, and basically think. But the future is very, very bright for STEM grads across, not just IT, across the board. If I talk to my friends in manufacturing, the head of engineering, or in Boeing, or if I talk to all our clients, it's a fantastic opportunity for STEM grads.
Great. Thank you so much, Ennis. I'm hearing a lot of trends on kind of that problem-solving mindset and remaining really agile, but staying to the core and the foundation of what you're learning in your courses to be able to really apply that across a number of contexts. Great. And then we'll wrap it up with Jacob. And tell me if there's anything similar or different to what Ennis had to share from your perspective.
So very similar. The speed that AI and ML, machine learning, is propagating is just astounding. I believe within our generation that it's going to be one of the bedrocks of society, and it's going to be applicable in every day of our lives, things we interact with and don't even realize it. But the other one that really sticks out to me is cybersecurity. The world is getting more and more connected with the Internet of Things. And folks don't realize how open the entire world is from a networking perspective. So the need for cybersecurity professionals and security engineers, it is going to be astounding as the Internet of Things kind of evolves, because there are bad actors all around the world that are going to take advantage of these things. So cybersecurity and AI ML are two of the big areas that I feel like are going to change in the tech industry.
Great. Thank you so much, Jacob. And thank you to all of our panelists as we kind of round robin some of those questions. Corey, do we want to go to some of the questions in the chat to begin from some of the attendees?
Sure thing. Yeah. So this will conclude the moderated portion of tonight's panel. Thank you all panelists for sharing all those insights with our audience tonight. And Tyra, you did a fantastic job moderating as well. So in it, we're going to open it up now to Q&A. So if you have a question, keep putting them into the chat. As well as if you feel comfortable coming off mute and asking your question, if you could just use the reactions function at the very top and raise your hand, which is the first icon there. It actually will put you in order, and we'll try to do it that way so we're nice and fair and equitable for everyone and their time today. But I did notice one of our students has had his hand up for quite a while now. So I guess if Logan, if you are available to come off mute and ask your question to the panelists, now's your time.
Hello. Hey. All right, sweet. So you guys are talking about networking, and I'm currently in Southern New Hampshire University, and this is my first year in it. I'm in a bachelor's degree in computer science, and I am an automotive technician, so I'm making a complete career change. And I find networking is single-handedly the hardest thing for me to do. I have a LinkedIn, I have the handshake, I reach out to recruiters, reach out to people in Apple all over the place. And like Jacob said, I'm sorry if I'm saying your name wrong, but he said that you get ghosted. I get ghosted a lot, and it's kind of hard to keep the motivation and to keep pushing forward and pursuing that. So what are the best tips you guys can provide someone in my situation to make connections to companies, to give someone a chance that has no experience to develop the experience?
I can jump in there. So from my perspective, reaching out to recruiters, look within LinkedIn, you can also link, you can contact folks who are in the company as well. You can find the connections to the recruiters who work in the company. So if the recruiter's not talking to you, go to one of the software developers that's in the company. I guarantee if you keep knocking on doors, you're going to get an answer.
So keep on climbing the tree.
Absolutely. There's software engineers and software developers within the company. Reach out to them. Ask targeted questions. How do I get started with your company? Does your company have any opportunities for internships? I know our company is constantly looking for interns and software development interns. So the opportunities are out there. You just have to keep knocking on doors. You're going to get ghosted. It's going to happen. But
yeah,
expand your network.
Just to add on to what Jacob said, I think if there was one theme to my networking history, it's all about volume. So like I said, I applied to every chemistry professor and one emailed me back and I got that first research position. And then my sophomore year, when I wanted to do an industry internship, I applied to over 20 internships all over the country, because some of you might not know this, but a lot of big companies, they will provide housing for out-of-state interns. So don't just limit your search to like the New Hampshire area. Don't be afraid to apply to big companies all over the country. because then you can at least weigh your options and you're casting a really wide net. So I applied to 20 internships. I ended up hearing back from 4 of them, and I was really excited about 2 of them. So I was really happy with that. So when I reach out to people on LinkedIn, I don't really get hung up on the people that don't reply, but kind of my formula for like messaging people was typically I would try to find something that we had in common, whether it's a person that we both know that recommended I get in touch with them, or even if it's something as simple as like we both went to the same university or we're both in the same sorority or professional organization, you start the message with that because then it seems less like spam. So, hi, Nick. I don't know if you remember me, but we overlapped during undergrad at X university. I saw you're working here now. I would love to chat with you to see how you like it. And don't ask for like, the opportunity or the job right away. Kind of frame it as, I just want to hear about your experience and how you're liking it and any advice. And then if you kind of hit it off during that first chat, then you can start asking about potential opportunities like, oh, does your company have any internships you could refer me for, or who else at your company should I get in touch with whose background is more similar to mine? So that's just some of my tips, I guess, that worked really well for me. But overall, just don't take it personally. People in industry are super busy and may not be checking LinkedIn super often. Like I'm definitely guilty of that because I'm very happy at my job. So I'm not on LinkedIn a lot. So don't be afraid to like send a follow-up message after a couple weeks. We're all very busy, and don't take it personally first and foremost, because it's never personal.
Just
I really
wanted to
enjoyed
add-
that question, Logan. Yeah, go ahead, Enes.
It's just that I think many large organizations do have formal processes for internship. I would also suggest that don't underestimate the power of your alumni. So reach out to alumni. I'm sure your career office has a list of all the folks who are working in various places. Every time someone calls me from the college where I went to, I have this thing that I have to help the person. It's natural for all of us. So and that goes a long way. You may not get an internship, you may not, but if you just reach out, you'll get good advice. The second thing is be very specific. I think Jenna said the same thing. Be specific. A lot of people reach out to us on LinkedIn. Hi, I'm so and so, want to connect. And after that, that's it. Right? So basically it has to be purposeful, and then people will spend time over a weekend and all that to either put you onto someone else and things like that. So I think that tenacity is very important.
Great, thank you, panelists. Corey, I'm going to jump in on the chat in order of asking, and hopefully we'll do it justice. So April asks, how do you go about getting information about possible roles when people are less open to communicating or haven't returned a call or an email? And there's a second part to that question, but I'll have you kind of jump in on that of, how do you learn more about a specific role with job postings being usually maybe very broad or full of jargon?
I'll keep beating the drum of LinkedIn being your friend. A lot of companies, especially in tight labor markets like there are today, offer referral bonuses. So there's an incentive for people within the company to find good talent. And if the good talent comes to them and they just need to link the two, that's an option. Keep using those LinkedIn networks. Find out who else works at that company. Somebody's going to answer you.
I totally agree with Jacob. I think every time I was interested in a company, I would message at least 3 people from that company that I was somehow connected to. And I would also add to that, some jobs you'll be able to find like creators or influencers on like TikTok, YouTube, Twitter that have that job. And maybe you can connect with them via social media and, send them a direct message. So for all you Gen Zers, that's a great option too if you're not having much success on LinkedIn. I know the chemistry Twitter community is actually very active, for example, and I messaged a lot of people on there while I was in school just for advice applying to grad school and things like that.
Great, thank you. And I'm curious, from each of your perspectives, how often do any of you work with dealing with sustainability, either at your organization or in your personal role?
I can go first. So yes, so within Infosys, sustainability is it's a huge initiative. Um, so sustainability can mean many things depending upon the industries where we come from. But it's all about trying to have a zero carbon footprint and so on and so forth. So, so typically for a consulting organization like ours, there is a lot of initiatives to help reduce our footprint, reuse. So there's so many things which we do from an internal perspective. The sustainability practice within Infosys by itself is a large practice. So we would actually go to a retail industry or a manufacturing industry and actually work with them on solutions to use IT to help sustainability. Sustainability is a fairly large area. Depends on really where you want. There is an engineering part of it. There is a IT technology part of it. There is a business process redefinition of a process model part of it. There is a community aspect to it. So there's so many areas with this. So it really depends on where you want to play. But sustainability is really big. And the nice thing about sustainability today is that Wall Street dictates it, so or demands it. So it's a good thing.
Excellent, thank you, Annis. Jenna or Jacob, do you have anything to add?
I guess as a large corporation, Gilead is definitely very concerned about our sustainability and footprint too. You know, we're always trying to make our buildings on our campus greener, solar powered, et cetera, because it can also be a win-win and save money for the company too, and reduce our bottom line. And there's also you know, entire jobs in what's called process chemistry, where they have to figure out how are we going to manufacture this drug molecule on like kilogram scale with minimal impact to the environment, like using water as a solvent as much as possible and things like that. So if you like sustainability and chemistry, that's definitely like a cool way to apply that and have a good impact as well.
I agree with my realm developing products for the military. We're constantly looking at ways we can how this is going to interact with the environment around us, a whole host of areas. So making sure that we are not causing a negative impact is always important.
Great, thank you all. Like Annis mentioned, you know, sustainability is huge and affects everything, and so it's interesting to hear from each of your perspectives what that means to you and your organization. Thank you. And then Annis, there was a specific question from Jennifer to you. You said that you didn't take any course for your field. Did you get your schooling for your current position, or did you learn as you went?
Pretty much 90% of what is important to my work today, I learned as I went. They did not exist when I started college in any form. So yeah, so and that goes on in today. So for example, next week I have a conference with the CIO on cyber. I'm not an expert on cyber, so I have to go put a team together, learn. The most important thing for me is I should know more about how I can help that client. So learning is constant. Today, the challenge I personally have is to figure out what to learn because there is just so much to learn. So yeah, but pretty much I think what I learned in college is how to learn. I think that's what I learned in college.
Excellent sentiment. I'm curious, you know, for each of your organizations, are there like on-the-job trainings for, say, you know, folks who are going to maybe be joining your organization that need those very specific skills, or or what does that look like in practice?
Absolutely. With our organization, a lot of times it may be for a very specialized piece of equipment or a specialized program, or we're developing something entirely new to solve a problem. So as long as the building blocks are there and you have that problem-solving mindset, we have a whole host of engineers of varying levels of experience who are more than willing to take on mentor roles and help bring that next generation in. Because unfortunately, with the job market is the way it is today, the folks just aren't there in the numbers that we need to keep growing.
Absolutely, Jacob.
I can, yeah. So no, definitely. I think the survival of most organizations depends on upliftment of skills of our people. The challenge our organization has is that the IT, speaking about IT industry, the field is so vast, right? So I think when I came into this industry, or even 15 years ago, we used to have formal training. So I would go out for training and come back, right? That used to be the model. These days, especially after with the pandemic and all that, we have training on demand. So all organizations, I'm sure, Gilead and everyone, basically. So within our organization, uh, we have thousands of courses you can pick up and do. We have worked with even SNHU. We have worked with some of the larger for example, we have a tie-up with Purdue University for cyber security. So we kind of syndicate content from some of these universities and it kind of gets routed through our platform, which is like a Coursera kind of a thing, right? So basically you can just log in for any employee and basically learn whatever you want. The other thing is we want to make sure that you can learn anything you want. We just don't know what your career is going to look like. You might be in doing Adobe Experience Engineer, then tomorrow you might get a fancy for retail banking or investment banking. You can get into a certification there. So we just try to keep it open because we just don't know where our next Einstein is going to come from. So.
Great. Thank you both so much. That's really helpful information. And we have a really great question in the chat. I just lost it for a second. One second.
I know there's one for Jenna specifically.
Yeah, go for it, Corey. Thank you.
Yeah, no problem. So we have time for probably 2 more questions, but this one is for you, Jenna. Comes from Nathan. What type of work, and I know you were alluding to this a little earlier, but what type of work do the folks with math backgrounds do at Gilead? And do they help chemists create computer models? And kind of what are they also versed in programming languages like Python? Thanks in advance.
Yeah, no, that's a great question. I know a lot of kind of interdisciplinary, like computer and science people really do use Python a lot. Python and R, I think, are probably the most common. And there's three main things. So the first one I typed in the chat because it's kind of a mouthful: drug metabolism and pharmacokinetics. Those are the people that kind of look at how a drug is absorbed in animals like rats or dogs, and then use math to actually predict how it would then be absorbed in a human and how long the drug would stay in a body. So there's a lot of math and modeling that goes into that. We also have computational chemists who help like dock the drug into the structure of a protein and use like molecular dynamics and like energy calculations to kind of dock the drug into the structure of the target. And we also have people who come from a computer science background that just kind of help with the infrastructure of all of our different research software that we use day to day, and, you know, kind of integrating new technologies there, and yeah, that's a few of the things that I think people from like math or computer backgrounds do that are kind of adjacent to what I do. But of course, we also have like finance and accounting and all sorts of things. So definitely a lot of opportunities there.
Great, thanks so much, Jenna. It looks like we have another question, and any of the panelists can kind of jump in on this one. Comes from Alba. Currently working on a bachelor's in data analytics with a concentration in project management. For STEM, what type of certifications or certificates should I work on to stand out? I'll throw that over to whoever wants to answer.
It really depends on what area you want to focus in. Data analytics goes a whole variety of different directions. The project management, there's a number of good certifications out there. You can start with the CompTIA Project Plus certification. That'll get you a mile wide and deep in the project management realm, all the way up to the arguably gold standard project management professional, the PMP certification. If you're looking along the data analytics front, it really depends if you're looking for something more in the coding side of things or modeling computer science. There's a whole host of options there, and it's really kind of where do you want to focus.
If I can add to this one, no, absolutely. So I think when you look at data analytics, so I think as Jacob said, project management is a slightly different field, and typically someone who gets trained in project management may not become a project manager unless you have the background and experience. At the end of the day, you have to lead a team, motivate a team to get the job done. People who are probably not as experienced may have to wait till to get that skill. On the analytics side, there is a lot of certifications on the visualization part. That is a part art, part skill kind of a thing. There are a lot of certifications on the instrumentation, the plumbing, so Azure, AWS to actually get, or Informatica, the ETL part of it, basically to get data from multiple sources into a schema. So that's one part. A lot of certifications there. In fact, there's a tremendous dearth of talent over there. And then you have data science, data mining. So that's kind of a very different area in itself. So the first thing I would suggest is to make sure that you understand where you want to kind of play. There are jobs everywhere. If you're a bachelor's and you want to get into algorithms, data science and all that, please know that a lot of people with a math background do very well there. Okay. So if you want more coding oriented, as Jacob said, then the first two probably are very good. Tableau, MicroStrategy. I think to be relevant to a company like Infosys or anyone, how soon can you learn and be usable? I mean, you have to be able to deliver on those projects. So pick one or two technologies, MicroStrategy, Azure, AWS, in some area there, get that certification, and that would immediately get you into the teams very, very quickly. Analytics, someone has done a good certification in analytics who can answer basic conceptualized questions on concepts and things like that, will find it very, very easy to get jobs.
And then we have one more question. April put a great one in the chat. So if our panelists wanted to share any specific LinkedIn learning courses that they might recommend, because that is offered to our SNHU students currently, whether it's leadership, software courses, any other tools or soft skills that you might recommend they look into. But there was one other question related to age and breaking into a specific field, whether it's software development or others. Has that impacted you as you've moved through your career path, or have you seen any impact from being a certain age within your industry? I'd love if each panelist were comfortable to answer that.
Sure. Not at all. We have folks who, the younger generation right now has grown up with technology in their everyday lives. It's all around them. They bring a unique vision to a problem. On the alternate side, we have tons of folks who career change midway through life, and they bring a unique perspective to a problem as well. There is no wrong time to get into the tech industry.
I can say age is definitely not something that's come up in our hiring process either. A lot of people have kind of non-traditional, like, the path to success is never linear. So one of my chemistry coworkers, for example, had a whole 10-year career running like a music venue and bar, and then decided to go back to school to get a chemistry degree. So it doesn't faze anybody that he started the job in his 40s. What mattered was we really liked his personality, and he had gone back to school to get the training that was prerequisite for the role. So I think a lot of times being older, you actually have experience that can work in your favor as well.
Yeah, so definitely, I think age has no bearing on the competence needed for the job. I don't see a big thing there. And as Jenna said, actually, age brings in a little bit of maturity and wisdom in people communications, which go a long, long way. From an age perspective, I think, again, speaking about IT, I think one of the things which one may want to consider is the work-life balance. So large IT programs, at least the ones I'm dealing with on a daily basis, will have people in 3 continents on a call, and we keep shifting it. So there are things like I may have a call at 5 a.m. or something which goes on till 2 p.m. just because I have someone sitting in Australia, and and someone on the West Coast or in California. So it's just that whole time zone thing, and these times can be challenging. And so depending upon one's personal situation, if you have kids, you have to, and things like that. Though that's something which you may want to understand before you get into that kind of a job, not from a competence perspective.
Awesome. So with that, that'll conclude us for tonight. Thanks to our panelists for staying a couple minutes over to answer some of those last minute questions there. And thank you to our audience for joining us tonight. I hope you found a lot of things you can take away from the conversation, a lot of insights moving forward. We are going to be doing these throughout the rest of the year, so stay tuned for those opportunities to jump in and learn and explore. And I thank you all and have a great night. Thanks again, panelists. I'll be reaching out to each of you to send you some gifted swag for your time tonight. We do appreciate it. And again, thank you to my colleagues, Peter and Alex and Tyra. You all did a fantastic job. We'll see you on the next one. Take care, everyone.
Thanks so much. Great questions.
Thank you. All the best, everyone. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.